This video is going to show you Solo Grandmaster Nightfall getting Planter rank on the Glassway this week. This is going to be done without invisibility or any boss exploits. This obviously is on a Titan, an Arc Titan striker. Reason for that is because it's probably one of the best builds in the game, if not, especially for Grandmasters, just because of the build and what it can do. So I did want to do this because it is fun. I know that we've all been playing Titan now for, like, since the season started. So it might start to get a little bit old to people, you know, with the Heart of Inmost like thing. I understand that, but it's showing you what it's like in the Grandmaster sandbox, right? And I've also done the invisibility run previous season. Now that still applies to this season because you could use the same loadout that I did then and it would still work. And not a lot of stuff has changed since then, right? Since Glassway was up, like solo wise, the solo meta on what weapons you use and stuff. The Monarque still king, stuff like that, still good on overloads. Although there is a slight change with that, which I'll talk about with the overload mod. But for the most part, you can use that. You know, you can use what's been done in previous seasons. It'll still work, right? But the setup that I've got on obviously is Braytech, the auto rifle. You can use any auto rifle or scout if you wanted. I think the auto rifle's a little bit better. You don't. It's kind of an odd loadout as well to run scout bow. It is a little bit awkward. So I think just having an auto rifle or anti-bio auto feels very good this season for some reason. Better than previous seasons. Just feels decent. So I went with that. Obviously, Braytech's I've got Vorpal on it, which is insane on primaries. Vorpal is top tier on primaries because it does more damage than what it does with it's a bigger buff than what it is on a heavy and a special. Now notice I'm using Fist of Havocs. Now you might look at that and think, well, that's an odd choice, right? Also, I'm using a sword. That is also an odd choice. But seriously, I'm not messing around because I do mess around in runs because it makes the game fun for me. But for this loadout, I wasn't messing around with. It did the job better than what its counterparts would. Like Fist of Havoc, as opposed to the T-Crash, I don't think it's as good because you're on Heart of Inmost, like you're spamming your abilities. You're not on Curious the Fallen Star, so you're not getting the same damage. It's decent damage, right? But it's still not doing like you're probably doing half damage to a champ. So did I value that? Not so much because I'm using Fallen Guillotine, the sword, which is going to take care of champs at the boss, right? So I didn't want the T-Crash because, as I said, it's not doing. I don't think it's doing enough damage on GM. But you can't ask for everything. I'm using Heart of Inmost Light, and the storm. It's all about storm grenades, not the super so much. But the super is going to help out in other ways. It's a Roman super. That's a benefit over T-Crash because it means when you're solo, if something goes really bad, you can pop a super and get increased resilience on top of a tier 10 resilience, mind. Super resilience and standard resilience all stacked together. I don't know what the percentage is of super resilience. I'm sure someone knows. But it's quite insane and it means you can survive when otherwise you wouldn't. And in Glassway, moments like that will happen. Not like this stage. Not until you get to the boss fight. It's all about the boss fight. Glassway is easy. Really, honestly, you're playing it from range. Right? It's when you get to the boss fight. So I understand if you're just here to look for the solo boss fight, which I have a strategy for, then obviously skip to that. That's why there's timestamps. I don't expect you to watch it all. But we're using a super here because this is going to stop the barrier from tethering all those ads. Because even if the barrier did tether the ads, right, then my super will penetrate, right? It's a counter to the barrier's tether. So the ads will be immune to your weapons, but not to super damage. This is intentional. It works for all supers apart from Bubble for whatever reason, but it does work with Well and any Roman super you can think of, or even like Blade Barrage, Nova Bomb. So that's a big takeaway from this, is these barriers can be a pain, not themselves, but it's when they're tethering other ads, and those ads are nading you and stuff. Now it is Void Acute Burn, it's not Arc, but they do still hit quite hard, right? So it's something that you've got to micromanage. Now I'll end up having a super for each barrier. That's what I'm using my super on. I don't Obviously, Fist of Havoc wouldn't do the job against overloads, would it? Unless that overload was like below a third. But if you popped your super on a overload like that, then it's probably a waste, unless if you were gonna die, right? So that's not what the purpose of the Roman super is. It's for the resistance. It's for ag clear at the boss. It's for Rivens. It's very good on Rivens, this super. You'll see that. Whereas with T-Crash, if the Rivens aren't together in a pair, sometimes they're not, then your T-Crash will only kill one of them. Right? Whereas Fist of Havoc could potentially kill them both. Right? So, as I said, I think it's a better super because the super's not, we're not using it on champs. It's on mages, it's on stuff like that and ads. Because ad clear is utmost important at the boss. Going up to the boss, as you can see, it's just all about ad clear. It's just all from fighting from range. That's why the Monarque does really well in this. Right, so we're just spamming the Monarque and our grenade. I showed the build at the start of the video. Obviously, with Heart of Inmost Light, and I showed you the fragments, so like an aspect, so touch of thunder, knockout. The fragments were Spark of Ions, so you get those, you get more ability energy on top of Heart of Inmost Light, right? So that stacks with that. You've got the Spark, so you jolt enemies, right? What else was there? Magnitude is a obviously top tier one that you need to spec. You need to have that one on to make sure that your storm lasts longer. Your storm grenade, it's important. And we had feedback on just so I could run a higher discipline. So we got a T10 Resil and a T9 discipline. That's what's important. Recovery, not. It is still important, but the resilience and the discipline's more important in my eyes. Right, but if you've got a good Titan build where you've got like triple 100 on the resilience, recovery, and discipline, then use it, right? Or as high stats on those three areas as possible. But that's why I use the feedback, because it gives you plus 10 resil. So it's a stat-based fragment. That's what I use it for, anyways. You could have used Spark of Resistance, which would stack with the T10 resil and all that stuff. That is a recommendation. Honestly, that would save you time. So it's up to you what you want to choose. Right, that's the fragment that you could change depending on your stat distribution on your army. So that's that section dealt with. It's pretty straightforward, as I said. People are going to find Glassway very easy up into the final boss. They're going to, if you've never played this before, right? You think it's deceiving. You're going to think, oh, this should be fine, this. But like I said, the boss is very complex. The boss room and the ads, and it gets people confused on what ads spawn when and stuff like that. Even teams have problems, or have had problems with Glassway in the past, in actual completing it. Right? But the build that I'm using speeds up Glassway massively. There's people who've done this in 20 minutes solo. It's incredible. The fact that they've done that. They've done Glassway solo within 20 minutes when it used to be on average completion 1 hour per run. For most people. If we're being honest. For most. But for exceptional players, they were getting 30 minutes and stuff. But now, this season, with the Arc Titan, they're running it so fast. Right? So... But that's because of a couple of things, you know. The GMs are starting to get... Are they getting too easy? That's something that I want to maybe make a video about with the Grandmasters if you're interested. Are Grandmasters now getting tuned on the easier side? That's a question that I want to sort of explore and ask people and see what they think. Because I think they might just be starting to tune them slightly too easy. Think of it as a scale. So 10's too hard, right? Say 7's too easy. They're getting like, they're going below 7. They're like 6 now, 6.5. So they're slightly, but it depends as well, because some GMs are balanced differently and in terms of how hard they are. Like Lightblade is miles are harder than any other GM. Birthplace of the Vile, Lightblade, Glassway. Those are your 3 ones. I mean, Glassway is starting, as I said, on the easier side now, overall, because with the 3.0 classes, right? Because Stasis does well, with the Warlock. Arc Titan does well. Solar Warlock would do well. Voidwalker would do well. Obviously, Invisibility does well in this. So there's on every class there's something strong for Glassway. Yeah. So it's like Glassway isn't, as I said, the hardest GM I think. Obviously, it's definitely Lightblade still because of the boss being badly balanced. That's what it is. It's not because, well, Lightblade's hard. It's the fact that the boss is badly balanced, and I would have hoped to have seen some balance changes with Lightblade, but they haven't with the boss particularly, because he's a ranged and he's a close quarters boss, and he's a constant threat. And this isn't a problem below Grandmaster difficulty, but it is a problem on Grandmaster difficulty. Now, I haven't played Lightblade yet, the GM difficulty. I haven't actually barely played Destiny at all for the last week or two, which is a reason for that, which I can talk about in a minute. But for this bit, obviously we're just capturing the player. Be careful. The Monarch will do some healing for you. It's not guaranteed, right, because it's got Unrelenting. It will sometimes heal you on red bar kills, but definitely heal you on a champ kill, orange bars, yellow bars, stuff like that. So just like, see that I'm weak, like you can't just stand on this player, be careful of that. What you can do is just step on and off. Step on the player, on and off like that. And that's probably the easiest way to do it. If you do finish any Exploder Shanks, they don't explode on you, which is good. Okay, so that's a player captured. There's going to be one Overload Champ and a Barrier Champ as well, with a bunch of snipers. This room isn't difficult, but can easily catch you out with the Arc Snipers. Now, my resistance, which I haven't really spoken about, I went for Void Resist with a Solar and Arc seasonal mod, and that worked out okay with the tier 10 Resil. Whether that's the best resistance to run, I don't know, but what I was thinking is you're going to need Void Resist no matter what you're looking at one of your slots at the minimum, because Void Burn is on, right? Now, some people will go double Void Resist, and I wouldn't disagree with that, but what I done is I went the Void with the Solar and Arc, because then that defends a little bit against Fallen, but more importantly, the snipers, the barrier champions at the boss has to do Solar. Right, so I just thought, well, that's just going to protect against them if I get caught off guard. Right, so that's why I went with the trifecta of resistances. So I've got Solar, Arc and Void. But make your Heart of Inmost like Void. That's a top tip as well, because the seasonal mod is Arc and Solar, but it's no Void. So if you do need Void, which you would for Glassway, then do it. But outside of Glassway, you're not going to need it, because the rest of the Nightfalls are basically Arc. I think there's one, I think they're all Arc, the rest of them. This Solar Shank can be a pain, of course, but just try to... I mean, I used my super there, you saw, but the super sort of knocked him back, so generally I would take him on a bit better than that. Better thing would be to do is try and get a Storm Nade first, do a bit of Monarque, then pop super, but the Shank, the heavy Shank will back up once you sort of threaten the Shank, and it'll back up to where the rest of the ads are, so just be careful of that. You just need to be careful of the snipers left and right. This is what you need to micromanage, is not the champ. The key point is not don't be too worried about the champ, it's the ads surrounding the champ. Watch out for the nades, because they do a lot of damage. The traps that drop off the Vandals, the Arak no modifier, just be careful of that. They can actually wipe you if there's enough mines set off. They can just blow up on you and you die. So take care with that and make sure you just shoot them. So we're going to prime this barrier with a Monarque first. That's generally what I do. I'll use a bit of sword. We'll make sure you dodge after you've done your storm, so that your storm grain will do more damage. Don't just throw the nade. Make sure that you dodge to get the buff, of course. Just finish off the remainder ads. We're 15 minutes in. That's the simple part done. So with the boss fight itself, there's multiple ways that we could do this for this class. There's left and right, obviously, areas. I'll just explain this as if you don't know anything about it, right? And just cover every enemy spawn. So for those who know bits and pieces, they might learn bits and pieces themselves, whereas the newer players will learn everything about it, with the spawns and where you can stand and what you can do to sort of defend against overloads and stuff like that. So first and foremost, it's a big arena. Where can you stand for Glassway? Well, right side there's a cheese spot, so if you want to use it, you can. Just be aware that it's not exactly safe the entire time. You can still die in there. So, but it is there, and if you're not sure about that, then you can look up that and see people's runs who've used that, which I have no problem with someone using that, especially on like a Warlock and stuff. You know, because Warlocks are sort of, you know, they haven't got the good arc, you know, abilities at the minute. So, but yeah, it is there. But as I said, I wanted to do, as I say, a legit run. So we're left side, and what your goal is to try to bait the overlords left, at least one or two. But the problem with that is the Hydra will keep hitting you. Do not touch the Hydra yet. You have 2 spawns of overlords there. Now, depending on a lot of factors with this, your positioning, if both overlords see you, does one see you, does one not? It's like a lot of things can happen, right? So what I suggest that you do, because they're Vex, right? You can hear their footsteps round corners and stuff. That is a big tip for Glassway. So turn off your music volume, your chat volume, all that stuff, and only have SFX. Because there's no radar on, chaff actually makes Glassway harder than what it generally would be. Try doing it on a Master Nightfall. You see how easier it is, right, compared to this. So SFX volume only, so you can hear ads if an ad was to flank you, because it's a flank that will kill you. So the ads are dictated by the mini Hydra. There's a mini Hydra and a big Hydra. It's a very interesting fight, this. So when the Hydra obviously comes in, don't damage, take care of the 2 overlords first. That is your first step. We've done that with a bunch of ads, right? Now what you want to do is damage the Hydra. If you can, try and get rid of the Hydra, because once the ads spawn in, which you need to look at the bottom hand corner, Vex, reinforcements inbound, right? Now if you can get rid of the Hydra at 3rd HP, great. But I was having trouble with the sword, sort of tracking the Hydra, and by that time it's too late, and we need to start working on the ads. Like aggro. This is the thing that you need to learn, is aggro and champs. Biggest tip you can learn is that to sort of aggro them round corners. We use Guillotine as well, so we get the Storm Grenade. That will keep them overloaded. So it's a combination of the 2. Initially stun with the bow, not a nade, generally speaking, because they will teleport out the nade unless it's round a corner. But the Monarque will stun them as long as you get your shot. And you need Overload Bow on your gauntlets. If you do it without, obviously Overload Bow is intrinsic to the Monarque, but it only counts on like a perfect draw hit, right? So it's better with Overload Bow. It's more consistent, so make sure that you run Overload Bow, right? That is why you do it. It's key that you do that, unless you will die to these overloads, definitely. You just need to miss a shot. It's not exactly perfect. You die. Now, this is showing you as well why we've got the sword on. I believe the sword to probably be the safest heavy that you can choose, because you really don't need a heavy to do anything. Like, you don't need a DPS heavy, although there is a good one, Taipan. The Void linear is exceptional in this, especially if you've crafted it, which I've done a craft video on, with the triple tap and the frenzy. It'll do a lot of work for you in this, right? But I think for players who are less skilled at doing that, I think having a defensive option like a sword, like using it in this defensive way. So if an overload does sort of push you, you can get that stun, like stun them with Le Monarque, then a storm, pull out the sword, and that wipes the overload away. Now a rocket's a good choice. I've used Royal Entry in this quite a lot in the past. You could use that, but as I said, I think because the storm grenades are doing all the damage for you, which I'm going to speed up the time here on the boss. Because the Storm and the Monarch's doing all the damage on the boss and stuff like that, you don't really need like a linear or a rocket, I don't think. Personally, I think it's better for the sword because if you're going to defend this zone on the left-hand side, I would much rather have a sword. Right, just because the overlords, we know that there's times they can teleport and you can miss a stun. What do you do then? It's just consistent for taking them out. Notice where we're doing damage to the boss, and notice when we're doing the Monarch damage, you can do it to the shield, the boss's shield. You won't get damage for the bow shot, but you get damage for the Monarch's poison on the boss. You just do that with your Storm Grenade, you keep dodging with your Thruster ability, and that's how you safely do damage. You never have to deal with the boss is the least of your worries. The boss isn't that threatening. Now, this is the second phase. This is now switched. Now, it's not Overlords, it's Rivens and Barriers. Now, this is where we use Fist of Havoc. So we use that there. It takes out one Riven. We could have done more damage, but what you need to realize with the Roman Serpent is, yeah, you are tanky with it, but when you get to say 25%, a third left, you need to start thinking about where are you going to be when your super runs out. Because if the Riven's still alive and your super bar runs out, the Riven will almost certainly kill you. Unless the Riven is finishable, which you can actually, if a Riven is half HP, you have a chance to finish the, because its class is a red bar, I only learned this recently, because its class is a red bar, you can finish them at half HP. They're not a traditional red bar because they're super tanky, but they are a red bar nonetheless, so they obey those rules. So you're not having to actually fully kill a Riven, only half HP, which isn't too bad to do. A couple of Storm Grenades. But you need to know how to manipulate these Rivens and know how to play them. The biggest thing that you can do is don't use your sword, right? Unless you're going to kill them with a heavy and you know you will, that's fine. But for the most part, you're using a Storm Grenade round corners. But you use it, you back up, and you loop around that little area that I was just doing, right? Round and round. But the problem is, what you're going to have is the Hydra is going to shoot you whilst that's going on. Now, the Hydra has a pattern of attack. He'll sort of barrage you with his arc blasters a little bit, and then stop, and then do it like that. But the Hydra will de-aggro. When I say de-aggro, the Hydra will start to settle down and sort of stop really attacking you. It's not an aggressive Hydra, this, which is being done on intention, I believe. Because if the Hydra was super aggressive on you, Glassway would be quite difficult to solo this. Right? If the Hydra was constantly like on you, like your standard Hydras, it's not like that. It hasn't got the general void blasters, right? It's just got that arc attack. So having known that, right, you can sort of manipulate the Hydra as well. Now, notice I've cleared out the two barriers because there was two barriers that spawned in with the Rivens. Yeah. Now, the key point is that I didn't do extra damage to the Hydra because if I did, I would have got another two champions and another two Rivens. The point is you must complete the final, the phase before till you start the next one. Because you're going to have, if you don't do that, you'll have 4 barriers outside, which can be a pain. Because I have actually done this both ways, where there's 4 barriers or only 2. If there's 4, they teleport more often and they are a nightmare to sort of deal with. Whereas in pairs, just 2 of them, it's not too bad. When there's 4 of them, it is. So I strongly recommend you leave the Hydra up. Don't do damage. After the 2 Rivens and adds are cleared, you need to focus on the barriers. Right? You'll then get another 2 barriers, but you're only ever dealing with 2 champions at once this way. That is the key point. Now notice I was getting flanked. Right? Always keep an eye on the flank. And I know that because of the audio. You can sort of hear which side they're going. And again, it's SFX volume. You need to make sure you've got that. But what I'm doing is I'm playing this super safe. I have got a super, but why? Why? I don't really need to push it because they're actually in a perfect place now. Both Rivens. So I can clear them with the Storm. Right, now it is decent doing the Le Monarque on them because it overloads them, which means they do less damage to you, and it stops them from sometimes pushing. I've had them chase you like a champ, which is quite frightening, as you can imagine on GM, because they are more threatening than any champ in the game, funnily enough. Which would be a cool thing. Why don't they make Rivens champions? Why has no one mentioned that? I know it would be kind of crazy, but wouldn't it be interesting? And, you know, as players we adapt. We adapted to champions. Champions were crazy when they first came out, right? But people soon adapted. So I think, let's see a Riven for a champion version. Since it's all champions now, they're not changing the philosophy. They're not changing anything that way. Champions are going to be in the game now for the next couple of years. So why not go all in? Have wizards that are champions. Hive based. Just go all in on any enemy types. That's what I think they should do. Because as I said, people are getting tired with GMs. Particularly I am as well. Which is why I'm in no rush to be soloing these and getting videos out. Because I just don't have the same desire to do them as I used to. Because I've done all these GMs. The only one that I'm not experienced with too much is Lightblade, obviously. But it's up this season for me to have a play around with it. But the rest of the GMs, it's like, well, I've done these. What is the new experience for getting that Conqueror? It isn't a new experience. You're just gilding it the 6th time. So it's like we're starting to get over this, the whole Conqueror thing. Now, maybe include some armor sets. GM has specific armor sets that you can farm, you know, rather than just, you know, the only thing is that you're gilding your Conqueror. It's not enough, you see. So I think there's things that they can do to definitely improve for when Nightfall comes out. Nightfall, because the Nightfall sort of activity is falling off, and I don't want to see it because it is sort of what I started out with, my bread and butter for the channel. And they're starting to lose interest for people to watch. Now notice this, look. This Overload pushed, but I still stunned, kind of. He sort of stunned and then unstunned. That's why I recommend you don't stun initially with the nade if the Overload is mid-teleported, because it may come up that he's overloaded, but sometimes stuff like that happens. But I had to sort of react there, because if I did miss Le Monarque, then it would have been quite bad. So always back up. If you think, if there's any sort of thing in your mind where, alright, I'm quite in danger here, then back up round and just go round this little building thing within left-hand side. You can also, as I say, free peek champs. I know we probably shouldn't be doing that, but you can. It's not trials. I recommend that as well, because obviously you've got no radar. Sometimes when it's down to the last overload, one of them won't push. One of them will sort of want to hang around the boss, which can be an issue, right? You definitely do not want to push a champ where it's right in front of the boss, because the boss melts, right? The boss isn't threatening, but if you're out of position, out, you know, in the wild, you're gonna die easy. We always do damage on left as well, as I've said, because it's just convenient. You're not going to do quick damage. Right, Le Monarque's only going to do poison, which is still a decent amount of damage, but it's your storm that's going to do the most of the damage. Obviously, don't sword the boss. You can sword the boss. I've seen people sword the boss, but you need a build for that, like a particular build. But like when you're on this, you're not swording the boss. The sword is for your defensive option. You can even guard with it. You know, you can clear ads, stuff like that. And as I said, I think the sword's invaluable for this. Like I say, I'm not joking at all. When you're trying to defend left solo, right, and champs pushing as they do, the sword's great because it just bursts them down. Right, and I'd rather have that than... Sure, you could have a Lydia on and do it quicker and stuff, but there's so much that can go wrong defending left and not doing the cheese and not doing invis on Glassways. That, as I said, if we're gonna defend left, let's just put a sword on then. Lament would work alright in this, but also, you know, you wouldn't have an overload weapon like Le Monarque. See, Le Monarque can stun a champ and keep them stunned, round corners, and you might need to kite a champion round a corner a couple of times. You know, peek shoot, keep that overload going whilst you sort of kiting that champ round an area, because you might not always have like time to do your burst damage there and then. Like, look where I've stunned this champ. It isn't an opportunity for me to sword because that boss is there and the ads. So that time we just took the champ out with the Monarque and a combination of a couple of nades whilst kiting that champion round corners and stuff. So you need to evaluate the situation, but if the champ is right dead in the building and he's stunned and everything's right, then you can go out and sword that champ. It's no problem. See, a lot of people would think some run a sword you'd run Lament, and somebody a while back, it was on the other crafty video, said that why would you ever use any other legendary sword? Whenever you use a sword you use Lament. This is false. Never think that, because that right there is somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. Objectively, what they're saying is Lament's the best sword in the game. Correct. Correct. But that doesn't mean legendary swords as a class are invaluable, because they allow you to use an exotic primary. Yeah. So if you're using Lament, you can't use Monarque, so therefore you can't stun champs around corners. This is just me sort of pointing out an example where I needed a sword, I put a legendary one on, it done the job. Plus, I took advantage of an acute burn, which obviously will help out the sword, right? But it's just a point that you can't say that an exotic's always going to be the best, right? Because they're just generally saying that. But when it's certain categories in the game, like I specialize in the solo category, right? Then that category is different to everything else in the game. Like me using a Roman super. The reason why I'm using a Roman super is for the damage resistance. It's so that it's also a plan B. It's like if you pop a bubble. Think of it like you're popping a bubble. If you're about to die, you can pop that super and you can survive things that you otherwise wouldn't. So Roman supers for solo play are powerful because of that tool of being able to survive, the resistance that it offers. Granted, as I say, Fist of Havoc isn't doing the damage it should be doing. It should, in my eyes, get a buff. Right? It should actually get a buff. I know it could do a good bit of damage if you start adding debuffs and stuff like that. But give more of a reason to use it. Still, everyone's using the T-Crash still. And I don't like the fact that everyone's using T-Crash. So now this is quite dangerous. Right now what's going on. This is what I was saying. Things can happen where it's out of your control. One of the Rivens is flanked whilst I'm running round. The Hydra's there as well. Yeah. So this is good movement. But you need to be on the ball with it. You need to be right away. Right, I need to circle. You need to rotate immediate. If you don't, you're dead. So you've got to be right on it. Now this is where we're going to play cautiously with this Riven. We'll just storm round corners. Remember, that's their weakness, round corners. But the Hydra, you can't hang around where the Hydra is too much neither, because they do a bit of damage. But you can see this Riven just going round and round, not sure what to do. And if you do get them finishable, like that Riven's finishable, so I could go in there and get the finish. But I just went for the safe kill there. So now the Hydra, the mini Hydra, is, as I said, like below a third. So there's one more phase that we need to do. Obviously, I've kept the Hydra up for good reason, because you would have 4 Rivens. Now try and survive that, because they're not like Overload champs where 2 push, 2 stay back. They'll just all push. They'll just all push in this room, and then at that point your run is not viable. You are then relying on your movement and luck. It isn't just movement, but if it is luck, like to try and outrun 4 Rivens in here would be very tough for most people. So you don't do that. You leave the Hydra up. That's how this is intended to be, right? To leave the Hydra up, because that punishes players. But we have obviously got 2 barriers outside now. There's two routes that you could do right now, and I wouldn't mind either way, which way you've done it. You could leave the two barriers outside because the boss is outside, so the barriers are actually a bit of a pain. Right, what you could do is actually kill the Hydra so that you guarantee that there's nothing that can kill you inside. That nothing that's gonna put you off trying to get a shield break or something. Because the Hydra, look, the Hydra's hitting me there. So sometimes the Hydra can do that. So what I could do is kill the Hydra so the Hydra's done. But then I'll get another two barriers outside and then the Ravens will come. Another thing though about that is I'm farming super. Look at my super, it's 70%. So I'm 70% on super. So I'm gonna actually actively kill these barriers. Yeah, so then when I do get to the final phase of the fight, I class as long as you get the Ravens down, you're done. Now to ensure that to be guaranteed, I want a super, just in case Ravens are flanking me and stuff like that. So that's where we've got a super, and you can farm them off champs. So it's really in your best interest to clear these two barriers. Don't kill the Hydra, because you can see the Hydra after so long will de-aggro and not really shoot you, not give you. It's almost like the Hydra's not there at times. It's only at the very start, the first like 90 seconds, you're getting a bit of beef off it. After that, the Hydra just sort of goes to sleep, which enemies do in this game after so long. So we've got our super, we're prepped. Plenty of sword ammo, obviously always will, because I'm not really using the sword or anything else, so I'm always going to have that. But it's something that you should check, make sure that you have. If not, then this is your time to do a little bit of an ammo run before the final phase. Because you can still sword the Raven, as I said, but they would need to be lowish. But as I said, you can finish them anyways. Once they get to half HP, they are finishable. This Hydra works the same as the big one. If you shoot that immune shield, the poison damage will still penetrate. We could use our auto. The reason why I don't use the auto is because it's a sustained weapon. Whereas I can do damage with a Monarque hide. And do, you know, the strafe. Can't do that with our rifle as good. So I'm really just only using the auto for breaking shields, that's it. The Monarque is for everything else. So notice now I'm aggroing two Ravens to this little lane. That is key, because then you can get a lot of splash damage. Obviously they are going to push. That's where we use the super. So we use the super and another storm. I'm getting hit too much there, so we'll have to come out. But it's interesting how much you can tank. I got hit twice there. And we're still doing it. Some ads have flanked us from behind. This is quite. As I said, imagine that with another like 4 Ravens in this room. It would, as I said, it'd be impossible. But we're aware. As I said, there's a lot of places you can sort of duck and dive in this room. You just need to know how to play them. This is the final Raven of the run, so we'll just, as I say, use our abilities and just do damage round corners. Ravens do have they can teleport on you as well. That's something that can happen. It's unfortunate if it does, and there's not a lot you can do. It's just a case of be at your wits at all times. Try and damage with Le Monarque, because Le Monarque will do the poison damage, and you can see the damage numbers. So therefore you can see roughly where the Raven's going or heading to without actually seeing the Raven, which is a big thing. I know the Raven's definitely finishable. I think we'll go for that. I think I do end up finishing, or I should do at least. It would just be a shame if I died random to the Raven at the very end, so I didn't want to push it too much. But once you get the final Raven down and all adds, it's just the final 2 barriers and then you're done. It's a done deal at that. This run was rather conservative. As I said, a 40-minute run. Not the best run, but I haven't been actually playing Destiny, so I'll explain a little bit about that. So what I'm planning on doing is, obviously there's a lot of new games coming out. I'm a PlayStation guy. I'm not PC at all. right? I have no sort of ambitions on like sort of streaming or playing on PC or any PC games. I am a PlayStation guy. That's what I was brought up with as a kid. That's what I'm like as an adult, because I like the exclusives on Sony, right? So I'm exclusive to that. What I want to do with the way Destiny is at the minute, solo-wise, it's a little bit not so much interesting to me. So I want to start to upload content on other games. The only problem for me is I have done this in the past, and it hurts the algorithm massively, because anyone who wants to watch me or is interested in me, they only really want to watch Destiny stuff off me, which is fine. That's their choice. I understand that. But for me as a creator, it does. I go through these times of positive times and sort of lows and highs with the channel in terms of views and stuff, right? Overall. So, and it's mainly because I can't get the content out, or I'm not even playing Destiny, or I haven't got the time to play. It's a very time-consuming game, this. It really is. But I have been playing God of War, the old one, just sort of as the new God of War's coming out, so I want to do everything in the old God of War, because I didn't play it back in the day. So I'm ready for the new God of War, and I want to upload videos on that. Potentially, we'll see. Right, because it is a game that's going to be very good. But not everyone's into that type of game, and I understand that. But I am. I'm into all sorts of games. I'm not just into Destiny. Right, Destiny's just a very good game to make videos on when it's hot. Right, it's just, as I said, we've done this for years, and I end up sacrificing my playtime on this game as opposed to playing the games that I actually want to play. So expect some other videos from me. I might do, I might not. I might even make a new channel and upload those types of games on there or on this one. We'll see where that goes. But that was a solo GM on this anyways. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.